You're listening to the Inside Commerce podcast hosted by experienced consultants James Gerd and Paul Rogers. Inside Commerce is your fast track to digital knowledge, featuring interviews with leading e-commerce retailers, industry thought leaders, and the C-suite of key tech companies to explore the latest in digital strategy, customer experience, and tech. Discover what the latest trends really mean and get practical advice based on experience to help fine-tune your e-commerce strategy and tech stack. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to James or Paul if you'd like to discuss an e-commerce project. We hope you enjoy the latest episode. Today's episode is sponsored by Greben and Centra. More about them later. Got a really interesting and exciting episode today. We are talking about BigCommerce's latest product release. I've just had a big summit event in Austin, Texas. I wasn't able to go, unfortunately. But it's about the next big thing, which is their big biennial product release. The last one was in April. August has just landed. Lots and lots of product news. I'm really delighted to have two highly experienced people from the BC community on today. So let me introduce them before we set up what we're talking about. So we got welcoming back Jordan Simmons, the VP of Product Management at BigCommerce. Hey, Jordan, how are you?
Hey, James. Good to be back here.
Yeah, appreciate it. Really enjoyed the last episode we did. I know that you're going to bring a lot of value to the audience because obviously you're so closely wedded to the product strategy and product release cycle at BigCommerce. And so we've got the expert inside view for BigCommerce, but we've also got a leading SI agency partners view to bring the implementation lens to this. And we warm welcome to Joe Comins, the Director of Strategy at Codal. Hey, Joe.
Hey, James.
So I've worked relatively recently with Joe and his team on a B2B BigCommerce project in the US. And one of the key updates we got today is around B2B. So Joe's going to bring some really interesting perspectives on how that actually some of the releases, how they actually benefit in terms of like development cycles and also what the relevance to merchants is. So I guess, Jordan, before we crack on to key areas, because we're going to talk about Catalyst, Makeswift, B2B, global, checkout, etc. What would be really useful to hear from you is what is the current direction of travel? Like what's the core focus in BigCommerce at the moment from a product point of view? Because it's quite a big release. There's a lot of stuff going on. So it'd be useful to, I guess, get that strategic lens of where you as a team are focusing and how you're deciding what makes it into these releases.
Yeah, look, principally, I think it makes sense that, when we just go back to our mission, it's really to help our customers sell more. So when we think about what's been prioritized, how we've really been thinking about this, especially in the current context of like the retail landscape, where it has been a little bit more challenging for a lot of online retailers, it's really been focusing on how do we respond to this landscape? How do we really equip our customers with the tools to be able to move faster, drive top-line growth, to be able to preserve margin? And so what you really see in this August release of the next big thing is BigCommerce moving really, really fast and being really focused. And if I were to really summarize three really key areas, I'd say that's core for us. Firstly, you've seen a big splash. Earlier in this year, in February, we talked about the release of Catalyst and what we're doing in the whole composable space. We acquired the company Makeswift, and we're really making that visual editing experience for composable builds very seamless and very simple. So we've spent a lot of time focusing on composable storefronts. The second is really around selling globally. This has been a story that we have been building on over the past years, first with the release of multi-storefront. And over the past year, you've probably seen a lot more of enhancements in our core platform around multi-geo selling, being able to open up the catalog, being able to develop and customize checkouts that are fully localized to different markets, offering new payment options. All of that has been really the story of completing our multi-geo journey. And the third, B2B. I know that you mentioned Joe's going to touch on some of those B2B topics, but B2B is so critical. I think we're very aware of what a market leader position we have in B2B. We've actually had that resonated with a lot of analysts as well, but really building out our B2B offering to help those manufacturers, those wholesalers and those distributors to be able to come online, sell, to be able to customize those experiences that are really relevant to their buyers. So in a nutshell, there's some of the areas that we've really been investing and focusing on.
Greben create digital flagship stores for iconic brands of today and tomorrow. We are the #1 Centra agency in the world, with more than 50 Centra implementations to date. We are also e-commerce design specialists, platform and tech partner agnostic. Try our new e-commerce design subscription. Visit Greben.com.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm looking forward to this discussion. And obviously, on a purely selfish level, because I get to get even more insights from you guys about where your direction of travel is. Let's start on that Makeswift category. So I know Catalyst, the headless framework was released. Makeswift was acquired. You've now basically built out the Makeswift capability to provide that visual editor function, which is massive, because I know a few businesses who've been stuck before with headless CMS tooling that's very good from a developer point of view, but there's no true visual editor, and the business struggles to release content because it's not intuitive and they need a developer support to create new templates. So I think this is really big. So what the key question I got, rather than me talking about all the little bits that have been released, I think actually a key question, and I said to you, I'm on this BigCommerce Slack channel, and I think there was a bit of debate about how well embedded it is. So how far embedded into BigCommerce is it from its ability to manage content across the store? Because there are so many different areas where people want to set content, from core landing page like a homepage, into commerce pages like a PDP, into basket, even into we'll come to checkout extensibility later. Policy page. There's so many different areas where content can work. So yeah, I'd love to know whereabouts is BigCommerce in its journey to get that properly integrated.
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, in terms of thinking about the whole end-to-end storefront experience, that whole end-to-end user journey, a lot of those beachhead landing pages, the homepage, PLP, PDP, all of that is deeply integrated today between Catalyst and Makeswift. So that's all available for editing. What we do want to invest in over the second half of this year, so over the remaining 3 to 4 months, is those final details of that entire storefront experience. And that may be things around, the account area of the storefront, as well as the more minutiae components on those individual storefront pages. I think touching on what you actually just mentioned there before with headless builds, headless has always been great in terms of the level of control. But to your point, it really has been a very heavy developer experience. I think one thing that's really intentional around our acquisition of Makeswift is the founders of Makeswift had actually spent over a decade working backwards from what the ideal user experience is for marketers. And so that's what makes Makeswift very different to some of the other visual editors out there in the marketers. It's built for marketers first.
Yeah, I think that's a really important distinction, isn't it? Because how business users use content is very different to how developers need to technically create components and logic. One of the areas actually I thought was really interesting. It was in the on the big next big thing landing page specific to this, was about theme settings, because often people worry about losing control because people are used to your standard themes where you have a theme editor and you're able to control all the settings from fonts, colors, styles. Can you talk us through how that works in a Makes Catalyst environment? To what degree do people have the same controls that they'd be used to in their standardized theme environment?
Yes, all of those global styles, those top level colors, typography, all of that's available through Makeswift, but it's extensible. And so what that means is the development team, as well as the design and marketing team, they can actually choose to control and expose more or less controls for the marketers within that editor itself. And so what this really starts to land on is it's opinionated by default, but it's fully configurable and flexible. So that allows the branding and the marketing teams to really have design consistency, because that's really important across the site, but also design intentionality. That's where you have the ability to throttle the amount of controls within the Makeswift visual editor itself to ensure that it is on brand.
Centra is the only commerce platform built exclusively for fashion brands. Over 300 fashion brands run on Centra, including icons like Paul Smith, Jeff, Avenue, and Nudie Jeans. Centra solves business logic challenges for fashion brands like no other platform, and they are on a mission to help you scale up rapidly, globally, across all online and offline channels. Take your fashion brand global, faster, further, stronger today. I really like that distinction you said, because often you can get this Wild West where there's so much so much control and flexibility, but then somebody overrides a setting they shouldn't be overriding and it screws. And then somebody from a brand or creative direction point of view gets very angry.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the beauties of Makeswift. Like, we've really intentionally tried to ensure that in terms of connectivity, it's not just like technical connectivity, but it's actually organizational connectivity, bringing those developers and those marketing teams closer together.
question I've got on, I believe this is coming soon, or unless I've misunderstood it, is the workflow management bit. And this I think will be really interesting to content teams because standard page builders, and you've got on other platforms, are really, really strong in terms of that visual editing, but they have very basic like publishing and controls, and it's not true workflow. So can you talk us through what workflow management tools are coming? Like how extensive is this for distributed content management when you have teams in different locations and having to have people who can create but can't publish, and those who have to authorize stuff before it gets published?
Yeah, in terms of like that Google Doc style real-time collaboration type editing and authoring experience, that's all available today. Out of the box, you also have a lot of the publishing workflows and the rules and the authentication that's required to be able to create, to verify, and then actually push those assets live on the sites. Actually, at the big summit, we demoed being able to provision a Catalyst storefront, but then actually from the BigCommerce control panel, edit that Catalyst storefront in Makeswift. And what was really cool about that demo is you also actually are able to then see what that workflow publishing experience looks like, whether you want to deploy a single page of the storefront or the entire storefront itself. All of that is built in out of the box with Makeswift.
Yeah, I think this is a game changer for content teams, because when you take standardized page builder in a modern SaaS platform like BC and you compare it to some of the publisher controls that people have in legacy platforms like a Salesforce, even though those platforms have a lot of limitations with them and constraints, actually the publishing stuff there is really strong. It's deceptively strong. So having this ability to have that granular control is going to be a massive gain. Joe, let's switch to you on this. What's Codal's take on this? What do you see like the impact and benefit, I guess, from you guys being able to build projects and get efficiencies of builds and for the merchant teams?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in Discovery, when we suggest headless, it can be daunting at times for customers. You know, they've heard for years that headless takes longer to build, it's more expensive, and essentially they have a little less control because they're using integrations rather than plugins. I think, like John said, with the demo of BigCommerce with Catalyst and Makeswift together, is really making headless a technology decision where they still have all the flexibility they need on the front end. They still have an interface that's fully integrated, and it feels still like one product. So they're not having to use different integrations and different systems to try and achieve the same. It pulls everything together. I think that's important when we're trying to sell a headless build with a very strong visual builder on top of that. The combination together makes it a lot less daunting for customers to begin to approach the conversation of headless.
Yeah, what about customers? Interesting enough, they actually said Catalyst feels like a higher jumping off point, especially when you think about headless and composable builds. So we're not really starting off with like the individual pieces that you have to then assemble. Rather, we have a very unopinionated but style theme that's fully connected to the commerce backend. And then by topping that up with Makeswift, you're ready to go and instantly deploy your storefront and edit it in minutes.
That's the thing. It's starting to feel like, a different theme, but with a different technology base. They have something that's visual to start with that they can begin building on. I think when you're starting to build with APIs and code, it feels like starting from the very bare bones and just using, SaaS platforms for a very small part of the system. This ties everything together. And it feels more relatable for customers that have come from SaaS platforms already. Or perhaps are not headless yet. It's more akin to what they're used to.
Yeah, we've tried to de-risk it.
I think this is a good thing. I think it's come back to those key points. Is that when you'll know this, Joe, when you sit with the client and go, yeah, headless. Then if people aren't engineering led and don't have a deep understanding of what that really means, conceptually, architecturally, it just instantly like, well, we've not done that before. That feels really onerous. And then you see the cost of building that custom front end, doing the API work versus something which is, I'm using the word accelerator because I'm old school. But that's exactly what it feels like to me. It feels like an accelerated route to market where you take some of that emotion out of the feeling of being headless, where it doesn't suddenly feel like why are we taking down this route? This feels like a crazy developer decision. Cool. Well, let's switch to B2B. And Joe, I know this is an area that you like to go deep on. You've done a lot of work B2B businesses. So the bit that I got really excited by some of this, I should go out more, to be honest. But So advanced account hierarchy. This looks really, really cool. And it's an area where other platforms that are I call wholesale B2B, that good B2B functionality, but not depth, just lack massively in terms of the control. So the latest release about supporting subsidiaries, regions, locations, different structures, hybrids. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because I know you do a lot of work in trying to understand the architecture of organizational relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the last year or so, BigCom really positioned themselves in a mid to high end enterprise, looking to kind of elevate the level of clients they have. I think with the B2B account portal and the settings that are there, is very much for B2B clients that are e-com first, that can fit their business into BigCommerce. I think with the new update, a lot of this provides more flexibility. So for businesses that are perhaps not online first, where 5 or 10% of their revenue is coming through e-com, they're mostly offline, their source of truth is an ERP. I think what we're seeing in the update is a lot of flexibility, so that BigCom can begin to mimic how their business runs, rather than trying to fit their business into the boundaries of what BigCom has. I think in doing so, we're going to see larger merchants move over. Obviously, Jordan, entirely the aim. But yeah, it shows the focus and the commitment to B2B, larger enterprise overall, which is really interesting. And a lot of the features that are coming out, like the open source buyer portal, is opening up a lot more opportunities for customers. And kind of like you said, the accelerator model, they're walking into a B2B system that already exists, but a B2B system that they can now modify to match how their business runs. It's going to make a lot of change management a lot more simple. The online experience can begin to mimic how they sell offline and start to marry up. And hopefully that brings a lot more of the merchants' revenues online. And the way we're looking at a lot of this is using BigCom to help customers self-serve. So pulling invoices from offline orders into BigCom, so they have one central place to review their invoices, their orders, their finances across their company for e-com with that specific merchant. Yeah, it's a good time to be in the B2B space with BigCom for sure.
Yeah, I think that flexibility comes through really clearly, and we've seen this in like when you've got like parent groups and subsidiaries underneath, and you have different levels of controls within each, which links to the next question, which is around custom roles in permission controls. And this is an area where I've seen people come unstuck before, where they're limited in terms of what role they can assign to somebody, and how that works within more complex groups. So do you want to just talk us through what you're seeing there in terms of that permission control and what the benefits are?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we both have the same experience with our mutual client, where it was really lucky that their company structure and their permission structure fit within the 4 roles that the BigCom had at the time. I think if that hadn't been the case, it would have either been a change management for their company, changing how they view their customers, or perhaps the BigCom wasn't the right move for them at all. So the flexibility to add more user groups is going to be key. Again, it's going to be mimicking how customers shop offline, what the company setup is. Again, aiming for that bigger enterprise with the more complex group structures. And the group structures that do have more than 4 or 5 roles are going to have, potentially hundreds of customers under that, hundreds of user accounts. So again, opening up to a larger scale and kind of having that nod to BigCommerce understanding how B2B companies operate as a whole, and having that flexibility to support them.
Yeah, and Jordan, we'll come back to you at the end of this to get your the product view. But the word you said before about being unopinionated and giving flexibility, this is what's coming through really strongly now, is not forcing businesses into like a structure that fits with a predefined hierarchy, but giving people the tools to map, to, as Joe said, create their own hierarchy in the right way. And Joe, you mentioned open source buyer portal, and this is something I got really excited about, because I've been in many conversations over the years where buyer portals are critical to the B2B selling process. We want self-serve online for customers, but actually each business has its own like uniqueness in terms of the things it wants to surface to customers, how personalized it wants to be, even down to the branding to make it really look and feel like it's within that buy-in journey that they create with customers. So opening this from a code point of view to the developers feels like a really, really smart move. So over to you. What's your take, and what does this open up for B2B businesses?
Yeah, I mean, thinking back to B2B portal as it was years ago, Obviously, a great start, but really limiting. I think when BigCom did the refresh and built it headless, was a huge step forward. I think this time last year, we applied for the license to begin building into it. And there were some features that were requested by our clients. So a lot of the bigger industries are invoicing on fulfillment, and they're invoicing out their ERP. One of their requirements is, having those invoices surface back to BigCom. So we've had to build some small functions into it, some invoice syncing modules. There's some requests coming through that, at a super admin level, they would like financial breakdowns for financial control. So kind of the health of the company for that, CFO that's logging in to see what's happening with their ordering across multiple companies across those permission sets. So having the ability to take it headless and, engineering first allows us to put a lot more into it. There's, again, some real flexibility on how e-com companies are structured and how they're working outside of digital e-com, which works really well. I think what's potentially an interesting move, though, and we've heard this from a few of BC's leadership, is that we are all building these small modules and these small add-ons to the buyer portal. For me, it'd be great in some future time to see a marketplace where we're all contributing these very small iterative modules and increments on the system. Even like the invoice sync module, and really making that accelerator. These B2B businesses are so different in how they operate, but all very similar in, the constraints they've had with their legacy systems before moving to BigCom, that having, lots of plug and play options, very micro, incremental improvements, would be great to have in a marketplace. I think BC are really keen on, kind of the accelerator module, and kind of idea overall, getting some of these clients live faster, kind of removing some of the barriers to a B2B storefront and everything else that entails. They're likely having new integrations, moving their ERP systems, having a PIM for the first time. There's so much more going on that if we can plug in the basics and just connect through BC, it would be great to have. And, we're building our own bank of them already. We're seeing commonality in what clients are needing to operate their businesses. And just having it open source enables all of this. It's definitely a game changer. Like we said, it's removing some of the barriers and enabling that flexibility for engineering teams to engineer.
This seems like it's almost like you've created the perfect segue over to Jordan now. Jordan, let's get the BC view on this, because you guys have been very, very busy in B2B, and re-engineering stuff is not a simple task. So it's quite impressive the work. So I guess where is this headed? What's coming next? What exciting things can we expect to come out of the B2B area?
Yeah, look, I think, Joe, you've really touched on some really big points here that's core to our B2B strategy going forward. The first is just really knowing the B2B segment that we're going after. I think it's very, very fair to say that, in B2C type implementations, there's diversity, but what we've seen really from the manufacturers through the distributors through the wholesalers, there's actually very unique use cases. And so to your point with the open source Byte portal, we immediately wanted to equip agencies like yourselves to have those picks and shovels to successfully service those B2B deals. I think what's really important, if we just sort of step back and zoom out for a second, your comment around having a richer ecosystem or a marketplace for like B2B type via portal experiences, I actually think that will come with time. And the reason why I say that is this whole acceleration of this bringing the B2B experience online, really intentionally, right? Like I think that's really been sparked post-COVID. So it's really still quite young right now. But we're going to actually anticipate a lot more agencies contributing to the ecosystem. So, chapter 1, picks and shovels. As you say, the next step will be to open that up, and you're going to have, the fact that B2B storefronts can be deployed on Catalyst, and you have these components coming in. I think you're somewhat foretelling a potential future scenario where, yes, the ecosystem does become a lot more vibrant, not with just B2B experiences, but with B2C components as well.
Cool. Joe, you are the Nostradamus of B2B selling. There we go. That's your new moniker. I really enjoy the B2B space. I really enjoy watching the BigCommerce journey in it. And there's also, I know that you've got your big AI, which is your kind of AI suite you're embedding into the platform to help with better productivity and efficiency. And that's within, I like the B2B quoting assistant that's coming. I believe that's coming soon. Or is the AI already live? Is there the ability to generate outbound sales comms to speed up quote process, where the AI creates it for you and you can obviously human edit it? Is that the coming soon bit for B2B quoting assistant, or is that already live, the AI bit?
Yeah, so that's coming soon. We've had a lot of feedback, done a lot of validation. Look, we just know that the B2B quoting process is very time consuming, especially when you're needing to draft a lot of those responses to those quote requests. And, we then actually tried to look at where are we applying AI across the platform? And in this particular instance, we already have the big AI copywriter using generative AI to be able to support that particular merchandising type experience. We then took that paradigm of like generative AI and said, hey, we could actually help a lot of these sales reps speed up drafting responses to a lot of these quote requests. So we're applying a bit of that Gen AI technology to draft responses in that particular rep's, tone of voice that aligns with that particular business's brand tone and voice as well. And take a lot of the context of the quote request and then just spit out a draft. And so what that really does is save a lot of time, helps them process a lot of those quote requests, and essentially get that business flowing a lot more efficiently.
Cool. Excellent. Let's move on to global. And I know that multi-storefront is a big focus for lots of the tech platforms, and you guys have been busy over the last few years building out MSF functionality, compatibility, multi-level inventory, etc. It felt the global stuff in the latest one felt like quite tactical and hands-on, which I found quite interesting. So I know you've got the big strategic announcement like Japanese language now supported, the translated control panel needed for Japanese market, which is cool. But there were a couple of things in there from a functional point of view that really benefit e-com teams. So localized blogs I thought was quite cool. Ability to tailor the blogging content uniquely to different markets. Localized shipping methods I know is really, really important as well. But the one that stood out for me is, which is coming soon, is localized variant product data. So that ability within a parent product, within each of the variants, to then control like name, description, images at a local level, which is massive actually, because some businesses will just sell the products and keep descriptions the same, but most businesses I know who are trying to really tap into local markets and grow properly want to tailor every bit of content and the way they position it. So, Joe, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the benefits you see from some of these coming soon announcements.
Yeah, when we look at a lot of companies that are going global on the internationalization aspect of it, there's a lot of regional compliance in what can be sold, what can't be sold. Some products perhaps are catalog only products, some are transactable, and then we also have different laws across the US and the UK, even down to regional in California for a Prop 65 notice. Those are all small bits of product data that are relevant only to their markets. So being able to create that is going to be huge. And then also shipping methods. Right now we're having companies act as slightly different when they're in Europe or the US or the Australia because of their shipping and fulfillment, and just localizing everything down to blogs and content, especially when it comes to kind of that split between the northern and southern hemisphere. Even down to clothing brands, your seasons aren't really the same. You're going to be running different campaigns, different focuses during summer for Australia than you are for Europe. So there's a lot of reasons to localize, and it is going to make so much simpler, especially when we have Makeswift as well, providing that extra flexibility. But yeah, for me, the variant customizability is going to be huge. Again, regional compliance is one of the biggest things for both healthcare and B2B. Some of our biggest interests that we work in, and some of the larger issues that we have to solve for. Currently solved through kind of custom catalogs and a few different means of pulling data from their ERP, just to show what they can see. But yeah, a centralized method to do this would be ideal.
Yeah, and it feels increasingly like there are cases where I've been in projects historically where HIM has come up because it's okay. We need to do this. This is going to be hard. It's going to be customization and it's challenging. And then we get to the point of, well, actually, PIM will solve this because we can structure the data exactly how well, and we'll just feed it through to the relevant storefronts and et cetera, and set the controls there, then actually getting the efficiency of being able to do that localization within commerce and not necessarily having to have a PIM simplifies, consolidates tax. So yeah, I'm all in favor of this. I think these controls are great. I got one key question. I mean, you're welcome to build on that bit as well, Jordan, but the one that I really want to know about, and it's been coming for a while, and I know it's a big architectural shift, is domain subdirectory. I always say it, subdirectories. So the ability to have a like /d/fr rather than sub domains. That's on the wait list. I know that's not yet a committed state. I'd love to know where the direction of travel is on that, when we might be able to expect it, because I know quite a few businesses in the past I work with, they're on that structure, and actually they just want to replicate that if they're moving to a new tech.
Yeah, maybe in order to answer like the subdirectories, I'll zoom out for a little bit and respond to a lot of Joe's comments there. I think when you think about BigCommerce and the journey that we've been on in terms of multi-storefront and then being able to help our brands and retailers sell globally, we're really in the final innings of that journey. And a lot of those tactical type investments that you've called out there, James, that's really evident of how deep in the journey we are, how well we know that space, and how we are applying a lot of those finishing touches. So it's really about giving that extra level of control to drive that highly localized experience that's either going to be required for regional compliance and or that's really required for conversion. And so, things like you touched on shipping methods there, the localized blogs, in terms of localizing your payments as well, or being able to run like a single payment provider, but have multiple global MIDs and accounts and being able to tie them so that they settle in the right areas in the right countries. That's all possible. As well as taxes. The United States has made taxes wonderfully enjoyable and fun, whereas the rest of the world has kept it relatively simple. But when you think about cross-border type operations, having a catalog that is entered one way, whether that's exclusive of tax or inclusive of tax, and then selling it overseas, that presents new challenges. And so what I'd say is, in terms of the tactical investments, they may be tactical, but really they're critical. They're fundamental to allow these retailers to be successful in those localized markets. So we are making those final touches there. In terms of the question then around subdirectories, so we've actually seen a lot of our customers implement multiple storefronts as headless storefronts. And what we know about that, doing a headless build using that domain strategy of subdirectories, that's actually supported through headless today. And when we think about some of the conversation we've had earlier around catalysts, headless, composability, it actually means domain subdirectories is supported with Catalyst out of the box when going global. So with Catalyst transitioning to become our next generation storefront, we're really focused on getting that right. And so what we also now acknowledge is we obviously have a lot of stores still running on Stencil. And so we will be coming around and ensuring that we do support domain subdirectories on Stencil.
Cool. I think it's always really useful to understand the strategic lens of how you get to these decisions. So thank you for that clarification. Our last core area, we said we're getting to feed and logs if we have time, but all of these areas are very exciting. Checkout, obviously a big area. So you've been doing a lot of work on checkout localization. I know now that you can tailor the order confirmation experience per market, whether that's country market or B2C or B2B. You can also control things like in some markets, you can make people register to have accounts purchase, others where you don't have to, and you can do like guest checkout, others where you can even control existing customers who are already registered and either allow them or not allow them to check out as guests as well. And that's a great control, because I know some businesses who don't ever want registered customers to do guest checkouts because of the data alignment piece. So there's a lot of cool things in there. You've added more localized payment effort, capabilities, like connecting different PayPal accounts to different regions or local payment methods. But the one bit I want to get into, because I think this is going to be really interesting, is, and this is on the coming soon and you're already working on it, is checkout extensions. So I'd love to hear a bit more about the ability for developers to build additional functionality. Yeah, how is that going to work? What type of extensions are going to be permissible?
Yeah, okay, so great question. So, hey, checkout it's just one of those coveted territories of the storefront experience. And, whether you're talking about a B2C brand or retailer or a B2B manufacturer, distributor, wholesaler, what we've learned is behaviorally, they want to customize their checkout. They don't actually necessarily always want to create a custom checkout. And that's a very, very nuanced distinction there, because often they really want to get all the benefits of the SaaS out of the box BigCommerce one-page checkout. They want the conversion benefits, right? Out of the box, we get around 70.8% conversion rate out of the gate. They want the benefits of SaaS, all the security updates, all of the feature updates to the checkout. They don't necessarily want to just and the PCI coverage as well, right? They don't necessarily want to fork their checkout and create a custom checkout that they have to maintain. So checkout extensions, or think of checkout extensions as like our answer to this requirement. You get all the benefits of the SaaS checkout, plus the ability to customize the experience. And so extensions really comes down to like these different points that you can inject your app, your code within the checkout to enrich that checkout experience. So as an example, just to answer your question around like, what kind of use cases have you seen? Well, we introduced an extension point within the shipping step. One of our customers wanted to offer partial insurance and package protection as an add-on to their checkout experience. So through this checkout extension, we actually partnered with a company called Route, which specializes in parcel tracking, but also parcel insurance. And Route actually built their checkout extension, which was a complement to their app in our marketplace, and they were able to offer parcel insurance and package protection. We're actually also working with Shipper HQ right now. Some of our more sophisticated clients like to have that Amazon-esque type shipping experience, and we know Shipper HQ does that so well. So, they're taking advantage of our shipping extension. They're going to be injecting in their enhanced checkout type experience within our checkout. And then again, that's how that customer doesn't need to go off and build a custom checkout. They can keep on using BigCommerce's checkout. There's a whole host of many different use cases for checkout extensions that we're also going to open up over the year. Things like being able to build in more trust signals within the checkout. Think about if you saw a great product review, or if you saw other signals that gave you more confidence in the brand and in the product. Being able to inject those extension points throughout the checkout allows you to hopefully drive a higher conversion rate. So that's really our current first foray into checkout extensions. A lot of the technology right now that powers a lot of these experiences is through iframes. And a lot of the feedback that we've had is developers love it because they have the ability to create and embed their bespoke experiences. What we've also seen, though, is some of those experiences don't always blend in with that checkout experience, right? It's not always as seamless. And so the next foray of where we want to take checkout extensions is to offer developers a more native suite of design components that allows them to build those extensions more natively into our checkout page. So think about injecting custom React components into the native checkout and then stitching that back in with Makeswift in the future. That's the next foray of where we want to take checkout extensions.
Cool. And it makes a lot of sense, and that helps with performance control as well. I think the key point is that unless you have such a bespoke purchase flow, most people need a standardized checkout because the cost, effort, and complexity of custom building and tweaking. I've seen a client who's on an old Woo setup who are constantly having to tweak and manage and improve their checkout, and the time and cost to do it versus standardized makes no sense. But extending is exactly where most e-com teams need to be. And the other thing I thought was really cool that you're adding, I'll come to you next, Joe, on your thoughts on all this, is multi-address checkout. And traditionally this has been seen as B2B. Yeah, a company might be, somebody might be buying and shipping to multiple customers, but actually there are some good B2C gifting models where multi-customer shipments is really important, and it's been historically very hard. So I'm really excited about that. So Joe, what's your take, the Codal view on where the checkout's going, the localization, the extensions? How are you guys feeling about it?
Yeah, I mean, the extensions really are key. We've worked with a few healthcare clients that can only get so far through checkout before you have to hand off to a private experience for healthcare data. Be able to modify those checkouts to inject into it, take a little bit of data at different times, kind of customize that journey that they go on. It's going to be super important. And also the kind of the coupons in checkout itself. A lot of B2B customers have some of the most complex pricing rules I've ever seen with, everyone has their own unique price. If an offline salesperson gives them a price, it has to inherit online. Obviously, they're getting breaks for certain discounts. They're getting promotions on different collections, different combinations of products, different free shipping. So the promo engine in checkout also being able to support multiple tiers of promotions, as strong as the promo engine always has been in BC. This is another huge step up as well. And when we talk about trying to get people through that process and get that conversion, these are all huge factors. We look at a lot of data and see a lot of people get to checkout a little bit too quickly. And we see a lot of U-turn back to cart to start curating and, applying coupons and looking at what other options there are. You can get people to check out too quickly right now. I think with some of these extensions and, like you said, the trust signals, it allows us to coach them through the checkout experience, hold their hands, give them positive reinforcement. And it's going to be a huge driver on the CRO side. I think it's going to be a really interesting one to be able to get in and test and then actually make a difference to and change the checkout with the extensions you mentioned. So a lot of opportunities to test and help everyone's overall CTR rate.
Gilly, I really like your point about getting people to check out too quickly is an issue. And I've seen it in considered purchase, whether that's a D2C considered purchase or it's in B2B. You get that whole the buyer's remorse and that uncertainty, and that you're right, it can lead to more abandonment than if you slow people down, give them relevant information and help them get to the point where they are more committed to their purchase. So I think that's a really nice way of framing that. And as I suspected, we spent a lot of time talking about those called for areas. So I do want to finish on Feedonomics, Jordan, but rather than go into lots of detail, what would be really useful is if you could just summarize what the big changes are, because the acquisition of Feedonomics a few years back I thought was really smart. And it's I guess it's not just about product database, it's also the channels it opens up to businesses. So yeah, where have you been going with that? What are the new exciting announcements and what's coming up?
Yeah, maybe let me just summarize two key investments that we've made recently, which I think is going to be quite exciting and also builds on top of that Feedonomics story and journey. As you mentioned, a lot of our DNA has been within, ads and marketplaces, and we're very proud to mention that we've actually launched live. So this is available today, a connector into the Shein marketplace. And so when you think about Shein, it's been a pretty fast growing app, especially like penetrating the US. I think some of the numbers are had over 500 million app downloads. It's got over 250 million social media followers, close to 90 million active shoppers. When you think about yourself as a brand or a retailer that either needs to tap into a new market, and Shein's used by Gen Z and millennials, having that connected there, being able to list those products on that marketplace becomes instrumental because as a brand, your customers are in plain sight and you want to be where they are. So that's the first, the Shein marketplace connector. I think the second is around what is known as instant commerce. And this is really about being able to offer same-day delivery and in-store pickup from your retail locations with key partners. So key partners include Amazon Today, Meta, Google Shopping, Microsoft, Uber, DoorDash, Instacart. And just think about, the shopper experience would be, and the merchant experience would be something like, as a retailer, you onboard your retail location, you determine which inventory is eligible for same-day delivery. That partner or one of the partners that I just mentioned earlier, they'll display that product to a local customer base on their marketplace. And that customer will actually see in-store pickup or same-day delivery, and they'll place that order on the marketplace. So that order is actually now going to go to that local store, pick and pack it, and then the customer will pick it up or a driver will pick it up to deliver that order in terms of same-day delivery. So that's a massive departure from what we're used to today in terms of marketplaces where they have been relatively walled gardens. Now they're actually opening it up and allowing for that much more convenient and local type experience and offering that fulfillment option through their marketplace. So they'd be the two key investments and the two key areas that we've been actively working on: Team Marketplace and Instant Commerce with a whole host of partners.
Cool. That's really useful. Thanks very much. And there will be links on our landing page and our website out to the main product release notes for anybody who wants to dig in a bit deeper. I could talk about this for days, but I know, Joe, I've woken you up early, and Jordan, it's the end of the day for you. So look, I really appreciate you both taking the time. I'll put links to both of you on the landing page as well. So if anyone does want to reach out and find out a bit more, I highly recommend chatting to them. They're both incredibly helpful and very knowledgeable people. So thanks very much. Joe, thanks for coming on.
And no worries. Cheers, James.
Jordan, a pleasure to see you again, sir.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you, James.
Cool. And thanks everyone for listening. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. Make sure you're following Inside Commerce on LinkedIn and subscribe to our newsletter. Until next week. You're listening to the Inside Commerce podcast hosted by experienced consultants James Gerd and Paul Rogers. Inside Commerce is your fast track to digital knowledge, featuring interviews with leading e-commerce retailers, industry thought leaders, and the C-suite of key tech companies to explore the latest in digital strategy, customer experience, and tech. Discover what the latest trends really mean and get practical advice based on experience to help fine-tune your e-com strategy and tech stack. Follow us on LinkedIn and reach out to James or Paul if you'd like to discuss an e-commerce project. We hope you enjoy the latest episode.